You know, some works of art are just so dense, so dreamlike, they almost fight back when you try to explain them. Today, we're going to look at one of those masterpieces, but we're going to do it in a totally different way, not through the lens of a critic, but through the words of a poet. Okay, let's jump right in.
First things first, just take a moment. Let this piece by the Polish artist Zdzislaw Beksinski fill your screen. Let it sink in.
So, what's the first thing that hits you? Is it some kind of monstrous creature? A storm of birds swirling in chaos? It's a lot, right? Super powerful, deeply unsettling. And the artist himself? He famously refused to say a single word about what it meant. But what if someone else did?
And that is where this whole thing gets really, really interesting. Because while the painter stayed completely silent, another artist, a poet, looked into this world and decided to give it a voice.
These are the opening lines. Think of them like a key, a way to maybe, just maybe, unlock the nightmare that's right there on the canvas.
So this poet, Zdzislaw Beksinski, wasn't just randomly inspired. No, he wrote this poem for Beksiński. It's like a conversation happening between two artists using two totally different languages. So let's use his words as our map and see where they take us.
We're calling this section the masochistic harmony, and that's a phrase pulled right out of the poem. And honestly, it just perfectly captures this beautiful horror that we're looking at.
And bam, just like that, the creature in the middle isn't just a monster anymore. It has a name, a nature. It's a pitch-black horse, and it exists in a state of masochistic harmony. And look here, the poem makes you focus your eyes on the form itself. You can almost feel those powerful horse-like legs, that dark, almost fur-like texture. The poet's words are giving shape and a real identity to what was, just a moment ago, a completely ambiguous creature. Okay, now let's look at that chaos on its back. The poem tells us about swarms of winged ones, which, yeah, seems pretty obvious. But then it drops this one violent, absolutely crucial detail. They're coming to feed, torn apart by bombs. Now, did you feel that? That one word, bombs, it changes everything. These are no longer just birds in a flock. Suddenly, they're scavengers, and this is a war zone. The poem completely reframes the entire image, injecting it with this brutal sense of destruction. And the poem doesn't stop there. It expands the carnage, staining the entire landscape. Their blood smeared on the full moon. Wow, what an incredibly vivid and disturbing thought. So what's happening here is the poem is asking us to see this bright light in the sky, not as a sun, not as some heavenly glow, but as a moon literally smeared with blood. And that makes the next line click perfectly into place. This dark, murky ground becomes its twisted reflection. The whole world is now part of this tragedy. But the poem has one more secret up its sleeve. A clue that takes this surreal nightmare and slams it right down into a very real, very painful moment in our own history. Warsaw. The poem drops a real place name, the capital of Poland. And with that one word, this entire dreamscape just collides with reality. So why Warsaw?
It's because Zdzislaw Beksinski was Polish. He was born in 1929, which means his entire childhood, his formative years, were defined by the absolute horror of the Second World War.
I mean, this man lived through the invasions. He saw with his own eyes the near total annihilation of Warsaw. And all that imagery from the poem, the bombs, the blood, the swarms of scavengers, all of a sudden, it feels less like a fantasy and more like a traumatic memory, something he once called photographing dreams. And right here is this beautiful tension. You have the poet giving us these concrete, harrowing clues: bombs, blood, Warsaw. And then you have the artist who insisted on total silence, on ambiguity, because he wanted you to experience his work just like a dream. It's this incredible conversation between explanation and pure mystery. So now that we have the poet's words echoing in our minds, let's go back. Let's look at the painting one last time. Look at it again. Does it feel different to you now? Do you see the pitch-black horse? The scavengers of war? Can you feel the ghost of a city in ruins? See, the poem doesn't solve the mystery, but it adds this powerful, undeniable layer of meaning. And that's really the magic of what's happening here. Beksinski built this silent, haunting world.
And Sergei Bakir-Dovin, instead of just looking at it from the outside, he stepped right inside and gave it a story, a history, a soul.
Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Beksiński probably would have argued his art needs no explanation at all. But what this poem shows is just how powerful a response can be. It really makes you wonder, what's more important for a piece of art, the artist's silent intention or the stories that we tell in reply?